What's good, everyone? Welcome back to the show recap with Mo, where we're getting ready to get into a brand new episode breakdown of Tyler Perry's SISTAS. But before we get into this thing, make sure to like and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss shit snit that's going down, alright? So the episode we're getting ready to get into is for season 7, episode number 17, titled Taste of Freedom. Now the synopsis states, Gary has reached his limit with Andi, so he charges up with a deadly ultimatum. Either she marries him or Jordan will pay the price. Fatima's intuition about Hayden and Marie Willis is confirmed when she sees them together. Now that we got that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into this thing. Alright, y'all, so we kicked this episode off where we left off with Brother Jordan laid up on the couch or whatnot, and now he's actually awake. So in the previous episode, Ethan had given him a little something to, to drink, and it put him down, right? So we saw, Ethan, pretty much dragging this brother to the couch or whatnot. What we did not see is, he actually had some ladies and gentlemen of the night come through, and they did a little bit of a photo shoot or whatnot. So the next thing we see after seeing, Jordan wake up or whatnot is, Ethan over at Gary's office, showing him the photo shoot. So Gary is loving everything about the photos. He sees the men in the picture, the women in the picture, and he's like, are you sure no one saw you? Did he wake up? Whoop, whoop, whoop. He was like, no, actually, the drug that I gave him, it knocked you out for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, right? So anyhow, he was like, man, these are awesome. So he calls in his, one of his main coons. Hold on, did I just say that? I didn't mean to say that. One of his main goons, right? Hudson, right? So he's showing Hudson all the images and all of that good stuff, right? And, they're laughing about the whole situation. And of course, Ethan is like, so what are you going to do with the images? And he's like, I'm going to F this man's life up, right? And I'm wondering, really, from, Ethan spending time with Jordan, is he really going to allow all of this to come to fruition? Because sometimes when you get a job, they tell you to do one thing, and the people at this job or at this place are going to be this and all of that. And then all of a sudden, when you get to know the people and you get to, actually spend time with individuals, you say, man, they not all of that. So I'm wondering if this is what it's going to be eventually. We will see. I just don't feel like it's going to work out the way that Gary believes that it is. So anyhow, from there, we head back over to Jordan's crib where we see Andi now coming in to check in on him because he hasn't been returning her phone calls and whatnot. So she's coming in like, oh, baby, you okay? Like, are you all right? And he's like, yeah, I just had this extreme headache. I don't recall anything that happened the previous night. Whoa. So she was like, well, where's Ethan? That's a good question. And he's like, well, he doesn't get in till a later time. And she was like, good. He don't need to see you like this. He knows exactly how he is and why he is like this, sis. So don't worry about all of that. We'll get to that later, I guess. So anyhow, she was like, look, let me go ahead and give you some medication. She gave him a little bit of medication. She's like, you good now? No, I just took it. I answered for him, right? So I'm like, okay. So anyhow, she tells him, look, I know you're going through a little bit. I know you're stressed out a little bit about your sister Penelope and her whereabouts, but just calm down. As a matter of fact, I'm going to come back through later on tonight. And, me and you can spend a little one-on-one time together. Wouldn't you like that? He was like, yeah, I'm glad that you're here or whatnot. So he tells her, that I love you. She doesn't respond back to that. She says, on that note, I got a jettison. All right. So anyhow, from there, we head over to the bank where we see Sabrina and Maurice. So Sabrina's like, hey, I forgot to mention, how's everything going on with you and Grayson and whatnot? And he tells her that, this whole moving in thing isn't what he thought it was going to be. He's just all on top of him and all of this good stuff. And, he's feeling some type of way because he actually hasn't dealt with the situation with Q yet. He hasn't put that behind him. So now he's trying to work through, what he's trying to work through, but he hasn't had the time or made the time rather to get over it. So now at this point, he's going off on Grayson about every daggone thing at this moment. So, I don't know how this is going to work if you're not willing to work through this process and be honest at this moment. So since we're talking about being honest, while they're still in the midst of conversating and whatnot, in walks Brother Rich. Brother Rich got his little juice outfit on, got some cups in his hand, and he comes over to the platform where he's like, "Hey, beautiful, how you doing?" Now, of course, Maurice is like, "Hi, are you talking to me?" No, he ain't talking to you, bro. He talking to Sabrina, all right? Miss Chocolate herself, right? So anyhow, Maurice goes over to go to work because Sabrina tells him to go that direction, but he ain't doing no daggone work, as you could tell, because he's ear hustling all the way. He's in hustling all the way, right? So, Sabrina's like, "What's good? What did you want?" "I'm working." He was like, "Well, I just wanted to come first and foremost to, apologize to you and all of that stuff. I was just dealing with some stuff. I didn't know how to take it and all this stuff. I really don't know how, how this whole fertility and all of this stuff works." And I'm like, "My brother, like, you digging a hole for yourself. Old girl has told you, like, she's done. You know what I'm saying? She's done right now." And she lets him know at this moment, at this time, that maybe we need to take time from one another and don't, continue to do the things we've been doing. Like, we can chill or whatnot, but all of that other stuff got to go to the wayside. And of course, Rich is like, "What? Like, what are you saying right now? Are you saying you don't want to be with me?" She was like, "No. But I can't be with somebody that's thinking that I'm trying to set them up." And that's the real, man. That's what you thought. That's what you believed. That's why you asked the questions. So now that you didn't think about your lie too well, talking about I didn't know how the fertility worked, now all of a sudden you want to come in and say, no, we can work this out. And then when she pulled that no sex card, you really had a problem. You really had an issue with that, my brother. So, it is what it is at this moment. And that actually... that actually caught me off because he was like, "You sitting over here withholding sex?" And I was like, "Hold on, are we going biblical with this? Like, not withholding sex. Are y'all?" I'm gonna leave that alone. Anyhow, he of course tells her, "Look, you know what? Let's just talk about this later." She agrees, of course. And Maurice is sitting over there like, "You heard what she said. She don't want to fool with you. She ain't giving you no more cookie, whatever it is. You needs to get up out of the room, right?" So anyhow, Sabrina is trying to tell him to hush, but at the same daggone time, Rich did say, "Let's go to the office," but you decided to talk right here, right in front of everybody, definitely right in front of your brother Maurice. So Maurice is going to be in the business, all right? So enough said, man. So anyhow, from there, we head over to the law firm where we see, we head to the car garage where we see Fatima is in her car getting ready to get out. I'm assuming she just got to the workplace. And at the same time, we see Brother Hayden over there opening the door for Miss Marie. So I was like, they had a good night. So definitely when a brother is opening up the door for a woman that ain't his wife, right? So anyhow, you see her getting out of the car, and of course Fatima is seeing all of this. So Hayden tells Miss Marie to go ahead and go in, sit down, make yourself comfortable. I'm gonna make sure my assistant give you, a little cup of coffee or whatnot. And she was like, don't leave me into temptation like you did last night. As a matter of fact, I got to go get my hair did up because, you sweated out. I was like, no, he didn't, because it don't look like you done moved too much. But anyhow, I see what you're doing, Miss Marie. Anyhow, they look like they dressed alike, too. I noticed that. Did y'all peep that? Anyhow, so Fatima sees it as well. Now, I'm not sure if he was putting on, but with Hayden, I wouldn't put it past him, right? So anyhow, Fatima comes over and she's like, "What in the heck are you doing?" And he's like, "What are you talking about, Fatima?" Like, "I'm just simply taking care of my client. She called me over and told me, that she needed a ride or whatnot. So, I'm just doing my goodwill or whatnot." And he's doing a lot more than that, right? So anyhow, he was like, "Look, Fatima, if you just want my love below, then just say that, right?" And she's like, "Look, if you were the last man on earth, I wouldn't want your love below." And he was like, "It's thick." I was like, "Hold on, where are we going here? Where is this conversation going to?" Like, she's gone, dude. So anyhow, going on from there, when Fatima gets inside of the office, of course, we already knew that she was going to call her girl Andi. So she's like, "Andi, where are you?" Andi is like, "Well, I'm about, 15 to 20 minutes away from work." She's like, "Well, you better hurry up and get off in here or whatnot." She was like, "What's good?" She was like, "Well, I just saw, Hayden and Marie Willis coming in from the garage together. She rolled with him." So Andi, of course, is like, "What is he up to?" And Fatima's like, well, I don't know, but he's obviously up to something, right? So going on from there, we head over to the airport where we see Danny working with a client, and in walks Tony. Now, Tony, in the previous episode, his ex-wife showed up, and you could tell there was already some tension between Danny and Sister Soldier Tiffany, right? So Tiffany, has been staying with his mother. And of course, we saw in the previous episode where Danny found issues with that. Now, on the other hand, Tony saw it as, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to say? She's the mother of my children. We're still cordial with one another. And it is what it is. Like, it's not going to change. Well, if that's the case, when it comes to this scene right here, it gets deeper, because now he's telling her that, hey, I'm actually going to meet up tonight with the kids. We're going to have dinner tonight at my mom's crib or whatnot. And, and Tiffany is going to be there as well. So, of course, Danny's like, okay, that's cool. But you know what? Since we're so cool and cozy, why don't I show up as well? Now, see, Tony, she got you, bro. Like, when she asked you, could I show up as your plus one? Because we're so cool, we're cozy, we're, significant others, to, technically, right? And you said, no, my girl Tiffany pretty much said, no, it just needs to be us. You failed the test. You failed the test, bro. So I'm not sure where it's going to go from here. I'm actually going to make another video specifically talking about Tony and Danny, and we're going to deal with this on another end, man. So anyhow, moving on from there. From there, we head back over to see Jordan at the crib, and Ethan has come to join him. And, of course, previously, as Jordan stated, he doesn't recall anything that had transpired the day before. So he's asking Ethan, and Ethan is telling him, like, man, I was here. I left about 9 o'clock and all of that good stuff. Whoop, whoop, whoop. So, of course, he was like, okay, well, we're just going to get past this. He actually apologizes to Ethan about the whole situation, because he tells him that he wasn't trying to get him drunk or whatnot, right? So anyhow, he tells him it's going to be a great day. And I'm thinking in my mind, I'm like, I'm hoping it's going to be a great day for you, because unfortunately, from what we know, it may not be that good. So anyhow, as I stated earlier, I'm just hoping that Ethan will, eventually come around and just rise above all of the mess and say, look, let me go ahead and be honest with you, but I'm not for sure if that's going to happen no time soon. So we'll have to wait to see how that pans out. So anyhow, from there, we head over to Karen's new salon, where we see Pam is working with a client, and then walks Brother Trey. Now, Brother Trey comes in, and, he's coming in to check in on Pam or whatnot. And he was like, what's good with you? Have you been working, your business and all of that good stuff? Whoa, whoa, whoa. So, of course, Pam is eating it up. And she was like, yeah, like, it's good to see a man, concerned about my well-being and all of that good stuff, right? So he was like, what's going on with you? So she tells him all the business, like from the rooter to the tutor. I mean, she's telling him about the lawyers. She's telling him about every daggone thing. And I'm like, hold on, wait a minute. Y'all not together. Y'all just talking. Like, what's going on here? So anyhow, Trey's like, man, that's good. That's good to hear and all of this stuff. Woo, woo, woo. So while they're in the midst of talking and whatnot, in walks Brother Zach. So when Zach comes in, he sees Trey talking to Pam, and he's telling Trey to be careful with that one. And Trey is telling him, like, I got this, bro, and we know you do. So anyhow, we'll talk about that later. So anyhow, from there, Zach goes over to see Karen. Now, his whole purpose of being there is to let her know that he and Aaron had a conversation, that they're good, that they're as tight as brothers at this moment. They've hugged up, and they've pretty much communicated with one another and squashed the beef, pretty much, right? So he's wanting to know, essentially, like, if that's the case between he and Aaron, then maybe, just maybe, Karen and Fatima could get along, right? And of course, Karen is like, okay, what are we talking about here? And he was like, well, I'm just saying, since, we're good talking about himself and Aaron, then quite possibly, just for a moment, could we just imagine a world where Fatima and Karen could get along? And Karen is sitting there like, for what, bro? Like, that ship has already sailed, so it's nothing else to be said about that. And I'm like, brother, just leave it alone, Zach, just leave it alone, right? So anyhow, moving on from there, next we head back over to the law firm where we see Fatima's in the conference room and we see Andi finally showing up for work, right? So, immediately Fatima brings her over so she could see what's going on over there in Hayden's office or whatnot. So she was like, look, see, you see what they doing over there? They just giggling and everything, like touching each other, like no shame, right? So anyhow, Andi is sitting over there like, what the heck is going on? And Fatima pulls her back over and she was like, hold on. They getting ready to come over, right? So anyhow, Miss Marie comes in. She got this glow. You can almost hear Juvenile back that thing up coming in when she was walking in, right? Because she had this strut about herself because she done got that back blown out last night. So anyhow, when she comes in, she tells Andi that it's nice to finally see her show up for work. So Andy's like, well, I didn't know that we had you on the schedule for today or whatnot. And she was like, look, you can spare me the time. I ain't got no daggone crayons, no pencils, no nothing to write down what we talked about. But my boy Hayden will pretty much fill you in what went down or whatnot. So in walks Hayden. And, when he walks in, he got that little smirk on his face or whatnot, like he done shut it down last night. And, of course, he was, like, patting him on the chest and saying, look, you go ahead and take care of that. I'll talk to you later. And I was like, oh. So, anyhow, Andi really wants to know what happened. Like, why didn't you inform me about this? And he was like, look, if you would have gotten here a little bit earlier, then we could have had this discussion together, right? And she was like, well, that's not fair because you guys came in together. What's up with that? And, of course, Fatima's sitting over there like, yeah, what's up with that? So I'm like, yeah, you know what it is? And Fatima is peeping it, right? Now, I know Andi probably isn't seeing it that way, but Fatima's from the streets. She know what it is, right? And they know that Hayden is willing to do whatever he needs to do to get on top or keep somebody else on top of him. So anyhow, moving on from there, man. We head over to see Maurice returning back to an empty house. And all I can hear in my head, I promise y'all, was, a chair is still a chair, even when there's no one sitting there. And I said, oh my gosh, man, he coming into a lonely room and talking about where's Grace and where's my Grayson, but Grayson is nowhere to be. And now he has the audacity to call this brother that he just cussed out previously, and then to have the balls to think that this man is going to pick up. Like, bro, no, you just cussed me out yesterday. No, we ain't got nothing to talk about, right? So anyhow, going on from there, we head over to the restaurant where we see the family is waiting on brother Tony to show up. He finally shows up, and I'm glad to say that he actually kept his promise with Danny by telling her that he was going to call her before he came into the restaurant. So hopefully he can keep his promise afterwards, right? So anyhow, going on from there, so now Tony is sitting down with the family. Everybody's glad that he's there. Everybody's together. And of course, Tony is, he's not really trying to look at Tiffany because Tiffany is looking a whole lot different. She got on her little silk blouse, got her hair laid down. And I was like, oh, you in trouble, my brother. So anyhow, she's telling him that she took the liberty, since he was late, to go ahead and order his favorite drink. So it's already ready for him, room temperature, all of that good stuff. So anyhow, she's like, when is the last time that we spent time as a family eating dinner? So of course, he's like, well, it's been a while. And she was like, well, when you were running late, I thought old girl, Miss Fannie Mae, was going to be the problem. You didn't show up or whatnot. So he was like, now, her name is Danny, right? And she was like, well, whatever. So anyhow, from there, she wants to play a little game of Do You Remember? I was like, hold on, no, we're not playing no Do You Remember. And she starts talking about, the time you spilled the cake and all this stuff. And do the voice, Daddy, do the voice. So they having family time. Everything is good. She's grabbing his hands. He fighting her. She grabbing his hands and he fighting her. And I was like, daggone, they back at war. So he's trying his best to hold on. But old girl is like, look, let's go ahead and spend some time together tonight as a family where we can all snuggle up in the bed together. And I was like, oh. I said, it's about to go down. Because if you notice, when his daughter asked him about Miss Danny, why she wasn't there or whatnot, he didn't even get the opportunity to respond because Miss Tiffany over here like, old girl is in family. That's why Danny isn't here. You know what I'm saying? So this is family time. Now, of course, Tony tries to stand his ground a little bit by saying, well, technically she's my girlfriend, so she's family to me. But you already know, Tony, what this is. Tiffany is not looking at her as your girl. She's a threat to her as well, as I stated in my previous video. You at war, my brother. Sister Soldier is ready, and she got all guns blazing right now. So you better get ready, man. So anyhow, moving on from there. We head over to Andi's crib where we see her in the kitchen cooking a meal for Jordan for later on that night or whatnot when she receives a phone call from Sabrina. So when Sabrina calls her, she picks up and she was like, hey girl, what you doing? She was like, well, I'm actually preparing a meal for Jordan. And she was like, hold on, wait a minute, you cooking? And she was like, yeah, girl, I hope it's edible. And I'm like, hold on, wait a minute, you can't boil water? Go ahead and go to the restaurant. Whatever restaurant y'all go to, go ahead and do that, man. Don't make his life worse. So anyhow, she was like, no, I'm cooking a meal, to, take his mind off of Penelope and, get his mind back into the game or whatnot. And she was like, yeah, that's good. And she was like, what's going on with you and Rich? So at that point, that's when she pretty much tells Andi, the whole situation that went down the other day, the fact that she believed that Rich thought that she was trying to trap him into having a baby or whatnot, even though that's not what she was trying to do. Whoa. So long story short, they get off the phone because Andi pretty much tells her that, look, girl, I got to get off the phone. My timer's going off and I got to make sure this meal is right. So she tells her, I'll holler at you later. So anyhow, going on from there, we head over to, the chill spot where we see Maurice talking to his friend and whatnot, and he tells him that he's called Grayson numerous times and pretty much has yet to hear anything from him or whatnot. So at this moment he was like, what should I do? So his friend, after hearing all of this, convinces him to go over to Grayson's house or whatnot. But long story short, he don't even have to do all of that because Grayson is right there in the same vicinity. Because as he's getting ready to leave, he sees Grayson afar off talking to another gentleman. So of course Maurice has to make his introduction and he walks over there to see what's going on. And of course he wouldn't be Maurice if he went over there politely and said, can I talk to you for a moment? He has to be loud and boisterous, right? What the heck are you doing over here? Is this the reason why you couldn't call me back and all this stuff? Whoop, 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 right? So Grayson calmly tells him, look, man, that's my coworker. And instead of Maurice taking that and calming down or whatnot, he goes on and on to the break of dawn. So, at this moment, instead of him being mature about this situation, he tells Grayson, like, look, you got one pencil in my house and don't worry about coming over there to get it because I'm going to send it to you because I don't want you. I don't want you. I don't want you. And I'm like, what the heck? I've heard that before. Is that from Tina Turner movie, What Love Got to Do With It? I think that's where that's from, right? So I was like, man, y'all... I said y'all crazy with that one. But anyhow, moving on from there, man. From there, we head over to see Zach and Fatima. So in this small scene right here, Zach pretty much tells Fatima that he went over to see Karen. And he pretty much told her that he and Aaron had squashed their beef. And in the same way, he wants, Fatima and Karen to squash their beef as well. So, the kids will feel the love and everything in the room. But most importantly, set the example, of love for everybody. So, as we're raising these kids together, that they can feel the love or whatnot. So, Fatima's like, I'm cool with that. But did you share that with Karen? Now, he tells her that, I'm going to talk to her about it. But he fails to tell her that he's already mentioned it once. And Karen told him pretty much he can go somewhere else with that, right? So anyhow, since we're already talking about Karen, next we see Karen walking through and she receives a phone call from Shauna. Now, Shauna, I believe, is the property manager who is calling her to let her know that her insurance policy has lapsed. So, of course, Pam is like, that can't be, but it is what it is when you allow Pam to run your business for you when she's trying to run another business on the side and then she got this new love interest or whatnot. So you haven't been doing your due diligence and that's the reason why your stuff is falling apart, right? So anyhow, since we're talking about falling apart, while Karen is out there, she sees Trey laid up against the wall with this girl he's lip locking with, right? And I'm like, come on, bro, you couldn't go to a car, you couldn't go to the hotel, you couldn't go to the crib. Out of all places out there on the street, right? A clean street, by the way. So I don't know what Karen is going to do with these photos. I guess she's going to go back and show Pam. But daggone it, I'm mad at Pam because you got my business falling apart. So I'm interested to see how she's going to handle that situation. Maybe she'll just talk to him separately, right? So anyhow, going on from there, next we see Andi and Jordan. So So Jordan has finally showed up, and she's telling him that she's cooked all of his favorites or whatnot. So he was like, that's good, that's good. So she was like, I got a surprise for you. And he was like, what is it? Is it my sister Penelope? What is it? She was like, no, it's not that, it's not that. I just wanted to tell you that I love you, right? So while they're in the midst of talking and all of this good stuff, we see on the other end of a laptop Gary, who's listening to the conversation. And I'm like, daggone, I forgot that this brother had her house bugged, right? So he's listening, and he's hating every bit of it, right? So anyhow, what's his name? Jordan is like, hey man, can we pray together? And she was like, oh, okay, yeah, we can pray together. So he starts to pray, talking about their relationship and all of that good stuff. And then all of a sudden he starts to talk about Penelope, right? And of course, she just can't take it anymore. She has to let this information out. So she tells him that Penelope is alive. And of course, he's like, where? Like, how do you know? And she was like, well, I've actually seen her in person and whatnot. She's actually working on a case with the FBI. So now Jordan is sitting here once again talking about, look, you already knew this. You got me walking around here like something is going on with my sister. And all of this time you knew that she was well and good. And you got me stressed out. And you're not telling me information once again? And she was like, look, I'm sorry I couldn't tell you because, right now they got me and her testifying against Gary. And I'm like, hold on, wait a minute. Don't say nothing else, because Gary is on the other end listening to the conversation. And of course he's hearing it and he's pissed, right? And he was like, you done messed up. And I was like, yeah. That's the only thing he said correct this whole daggone episode. Y'all have messed up, man. So anyhow, going on from there, we head over to Danny's crib where we see Tony getting dressed or whatnot with the same suit that he had on previously, right? So of course she's coming out of her, little bedroom or whatnot. And she was like, when did you get here? He was like, man, I got in, but you were butt tired. Like you were laid out. I don't know what you was smoking on, right? And I was like, he lying. Because ain't no way you came to the crib. You let her know that you were going to call her, whoop, whoop, whoop. Now, if you got to the crib in time or you didn't get to the crib in time, you still could have gotten into bed with her unless it was super, super late, right? But he's telling her, like, I didn't want to bother you because you were laid out. And of course, Danny is sitting there like, okay. So then here was another clue for me, because she was like, okay, so where you getting ready to go? He was like, look, I'm getting ready to go to work so I can, avoid all the traffic or whatnot. And she was like, well, okay, we're not going to spend time together. And he was like, oh, no, you want to spend time right now? I'm already dressed. And she was like, well, that's never stopped you before. And I was like, oh, here we go again. So he was like, oh, you know what? No, I'm going to just go ahead and head on into work. So I'm like, hold on, what are we missing here, Tony? What what are we missing here, man? So, even Danny was sitting there like, hold on, wait a minute, something just isn't right. So anyhow, from there, we see Andi getting out of her car at the car garage or whatnot, getting ready to go into work. When she drops something on the ground, she bends over and picks it up, and Gary shows up from behind. So of course, when she sees him, she was like, what the heck are you doing, right? And he was like, look, I just came here for one reason, and that's you. And she was like, well, that's never going to happen, so you might as well leave. So he was like, okay, before I leave, let me go ahead and show you these. So he shows her the pictures of Jordan with the prostitutes or whatnot. And she was like, oh, no, that's Photoshop. I don't believe that. He was like, really? Because I got video as well. And I was like, oh, man, this is... I said, this is diabolical, man. So anyhow, when he starts to tell her what he's going to do and all of this good stuff, and then he reveals that he has both Jordan and her crib bugged, and that I already know about the situation with the FBI and all of that good stuff, he let the cat out of the bag. So he was like, y'all done effed up. So the only thing you could do at this moment is to marry me. And she was like, no, I'm not doing that. He was like, well, if you don't, I'm going to put all of this stuff out on the internet. And she was like, well, we've gotten through this once before, so we'll get through it again. He was like, no, I don't think you understand. Because if you don't do it the way I want it to be done, you will be on the lives like my child. I was like, oh my gosh. Like, seriously, bro? Is it that good? I mean, man, let me get up off this internet, man. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this one. Make sure to like and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss shit snit that's going down, all right? I'll talk to y'all shortly, man. Peace.